Hi, and thank you very much for tuning into this video. I'm Jane Ribbens McCarthy. I'm here with my colleague Raia Prokhovnik, and we're going to talk about the article that we've written about embodied relationality and caring after death. So we thought we'd start by explaining a little bit about what each of us brought to this and why we wanted to do it. I'm primarily a sociologist, but I have had an interest in other disciplines, a strong interest over the years. And particularly around anthropological work quite recently, which we draw on in the article. But my main focus of work over the years has been about the family lives of children and young people. But in more recent years, that developed into a related area, which is concerned with children and young people's experiences of bereavement. And that interest arose out of my personal experience, because my husband died in January 2000, at the time when our daughter was only 5 years old. So that personal interest led me to extend the work on family lives into those sorts of new areas. And in some respects over the years I've then gone back again to wanting to link it up to more general issues also about children's family lives, which resulted last year in my book that I co-edited with some very good colleagues and friends. But it's about children's family troubles in a more general sense as well. But for this particular article, Raia and I developed conversations between us and realised we had different things to bring to it, but also some complementary things. So do you want to say a bit about yourself, Raia?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Raia Prokhovnik, and my background is in political theory. I became interested in feminist political theory, and in 2002 I wrote a book called Rational Woman. I met Jane through the feminist reading group that we have here at the Open University, and also got to know her more closely after my son died in 2010 when he was 25.
Okay, so we brought different backgrounds and different experiences to our conversations. We also did share quite a lot too, and feel that our interests are quite complementary. So we shared a common interest in a feminist perspective, and in particular the feminist ethics of care is something that we both had a strong interest in. And as we kind of developed the conversation and developed the article, we found we were really concerned to move between the more empirical, experiential sort of accounts and the more theoretical interests, and to keep that going as a dialogue throughout the piece. So that's how the article is actually structured. So in particular, we wanted to, we shared this interest in feminist ethics of care, and one of the central concepts in that is the notion of relationality, and that's the focus of our article. And in particular, the notion of embodied relationality. Because what we felt from our personal experiences was that caring after death brings bodies into sharp relief, and we explore that through this notion of embodied relationality. And in the process, we challenge some of the sort of core precepts of Western culture, in particular UK and US Protestant culture, that it challenges the idea of the autonomous and independent, bounded individual, and that it challenges assumptions about the natural world too, as a pre-social bedrock. So in considering people's embodied experiences of caring after death, we raise challenges to these core assumptions. Now those concepts and those assumptions have been challenged by others in academic work, in particular perhaps the work of Kenneth Gergen talking about people as relational beings. So we're building on that work of questioning what we mean by individuality and questioning how we understand relationality, not just as individuals in relationships, but as something more fundamental about that. But what we feel we add is this particular focus on embodied relationality and how it's mediated through corporeal and enfleshed experiences. So Well, our focus is on relational beings who are bound up with others, and embodied relationality as a felt experience that is particularly apparent through this notion of caring after death. And as I've said, in the article we try and do this both theoretically and by drawing on accounts, published accounts and anthropological work too, about people's actual experiences after the death of a significant person in their lives. And that in the process what becomes apparent is that people are experiencing a non-dichotomous, a material and embodied relationality. But we should also say that because the focus is on experiences, it is conscious experience that we're looking at in this particular article. But that what happens from that is that it leads us to question fundamentally the notion of the bounded individual and of a personhood that ends with the demise of the corporeal and enfleshed others. So I'll pass now to Raia to develop these ideas a bit more.
Sorry. Okay, thanks, Jane. After the death of my son, I felt one of the things I felt was a very strong desire for connectedness with Connell and with other people in order to honour, as I would put it, as we put it in the article, the me, the you and the us in the sense of relationality that I had with Connell. So one of our starting points, as Jane I think has already mentioned, is that in many affluent Western societies, death is taken to signify an absolute loss of the other with the loss of their physical body. So we wanted to challenge that idea of absolute loss, and we think that embodied relational experience can continue after death in an important way. The material and embodied challenges to the dominant understandings of the body come not only from empirical work but also from theoretical work that's been developed over the last couple of decades. So embodied relational care, that's our starting point from the feminist ethics of care. Embodied relational care is a complex interpersonal sense of connectedness written into our bodies. So the me, the you and the us. After death, we argue that the me and the us remain, and crucial dimensions of the you persist as well. The us is written into my body after your death, and so continues to have material presence. The materiality of embodiment in relational care we see as a field of intensity between this me, you, and in the us, occurring in close personal relationships. And it includes the stuff associated with your materiality. And so even after your physical body is gone, that remains, that sense of materiality, your materiality. So the us helps to shape the me and the you, and in that way remains after the death of one of the pair. So what we wanted to do in this article was to unravel the binary divide that's taken to strictly separate living and dead bodies. And so in the process of the article, other dichotomies are called into question too: mind-body, self-other, the natural and the social. And so for us in the article, embodiment becomes a non-binary concept. The feminist ethic of care is crucial to what we wanted to do in this article, and it demonstrates that our lived embodied experience and reality is interwoven with others. So at the end of the article, what we want to be able to demonstrate and to persuade our readers about is that what we have with embodied relationality in caring after death is presence in absence rather than absolute absence. So I hope that what Jane and I have said in this podcast about our article will stimulate you to go and read the article. Thank you.